Just under 800 years ago, in the dead of a dark and brutal Icelandic winter, a story was finally written down. It had already lived for centuries, passed from mouth to mouth, bard to bard, across fireside gatherings and windswept shores. A tale woven from myths, monsters, and great heroes. Now, thanks to a literary revolution sweeping across medieval Iceland, the story would be preserved, etched into vellum, immortalized for future generations. From Greenland to the Mediterranean, across the Viking world, this tale endured. It had been memorized, performed, and cherished by generations of poets. And today, it's still told, more than a millennium later. It's the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. But was it ever true? To find out, we need to step into the fragmented heart of early medieval Europe, into the fading shadow of an empire once held together by a man named Charlemagne. In the year 814, Charlemagne, the mighty king of the Franks and ruler of the largest empire Western Europe had seen since the fall of Rome, was dead. His empire, once a beacon of order, quickly fractured. Civil war erupted between his descendants. Unlike the Roman tradition of passing inheritance to a single heir, the Franks followed their ancient custom: divide everything among the sons. It was a tradition that would haunt them. When the dust settled, Charlemagne's legacy lay in ruins, split into 3 kingdoms: East Francia, the seed of modern Germany; Lotharingia, a short-lived middle realm, later swallowed by its neighbors; West Francia, the foundation of what would become France. But this new kingdom in the west, ruled by Louis the Pious and later Charles the Bald, was a weakened shadow. Power was scattered, borders were porous, and from the north, something was stirring. For years, the Franks had pushed into pagan lands, converting and conquering, especially in Old Saxony just south of Denmark. Now the tide was turning. At first, it was just a trickle, a few longships testing their luck on the coastlines. But slowly, surely, the raids grew bolder, larger, deadlier. The Viking Age had begun. Contemporary Frankish records mention a Danish king named Horik. He ruled during the early 800s and faced internal challenges, including a rival, Harald Clack, backed by Louis the Pious. A classic divide-and-rule strategy, one Charlemagne might have mastered. But this time, the plan backfired. Horik survived, and soon the North would answer with blood and fire. After defeating his rival, Horik watched as fleets of longships swept down the rivers of Francia. By the 830s, Viking raids became yearly catastrophes. What began as opportunistic attacks by a few dozen warriors evolved into coordinated campaigns by seasoned warbands. In 845, a fleet unlike anything before it arrived. Frankish sources say it was made up of 120 longships, carrying over 5,000 warriors. They were led by a man named Ragnar. Many scholars believe this name was another version of a much more legendary figure, Ragnar Lothbrok. Ragnar's name appears in countless later sources, from Icelandic sagas to 12th century runic inscriptions. His life, if he truly lived, became the foundation for mythic storytelling across Scandinavia. But separating fact from fiction is nearly impossible. According to sagas, he wore enchanted trousers made from cowhide, boiled in pitch, granting him protection in battle. He won his second wife, the shield maiden Aslog, by slaying a dragon-like serpent that guarded her. And he claimed descent from Odin himself, like many Danish kings of the time, including Horik. To later generations, Ragnar became more than a man. He was a symbol, a larger-than-life embodiment of the Viking spirit. Did he actually lead the Great Raid of 845? Was he the first of the so-called Sea Kings, Viking warlords who ruled not by land but by conquest? The sources don't agree, but the timing, the devastation, and the sheer scale of that invasion suggest someone extraordinary was at the helm. That spring, Ragnar, or Regan Harris, led his vast fleet up the Seine and struck at the very heart of West Francia, Paris. The city was ill-prepared, its defenses were outdated, its defenders weak. Ragnar's forces stormed the walls, plundered the churches, and humiliated the kingdom. Charles the Bald, desperate to stop the bloodshed, paid the Vikings a massive ransom to leave. It would not be the last time Viking gold was bought with Christian silver. But the psychological blow? That was permanent. The Vikings had proven that no city was safe. In the decades that followed, Viking raids intensified, and the name Ragnar Lothbrok only grew in power. Even after his death, possibly in a pit of vipers, thrown there by King Ella of Northumbria, his sons would continue his legacy. The great heathen army that ravaged England in the late 9th century claimed to be seeking vengeance for their father's murder. Were they truly his sons? Perhaps. Or perhaps invoking Ragnar's name was simply the most powerful weapon they had, because Ragnar Lothbrok, real or not, had become legend. He may have worn enchanted trousers, he may have fought serpents, he may have been born of Odin. But even stripped of myth, the truth remains. In 845, a Viking warlord brought fire to the gates of Paris. He broke a kingdom, and his name still echoes through history. Ragnar Lothbrok, the first Sea King, the myth, and maybe the man.